Almost 280,000 women have served in Afghanistan and Iraq since 9/11. That's according to a report by the Disabled Veterans of America, which pointed out that while the number of male veterans will decline in the coming years, the number of female veterans will grow dramatically. But the report highlights serious gaps in the programs that serve women. Female vets are more likely to experience homelessness and unemployment, and many don't have access to health care services. Producer Megan Kermick talks about these issues with the group Women Veterans of New Mexico and Henderson House, a homeless shelter launched by the YWCA of the Middle Rio Grande, as well as two veterans.
I have with me today Denise Edwell. She's a veteran who is also at Henderson House, and Megan Rochelle Brown. She's program coordinator for Henderson House. Judy Quintana is president of Women Veterans of New Mexico, and Carla Torres is a veteran of the Iraq War, still on active duty, almost about to retire. So thank you all for being here. A recent report by Disabled Veterans of America found that while the federal government is raced to establish programs to serve combat veterans, the current system for women transitioning from military service is a disjointed patchwork, I'm quoting, of programs marked by serious gaps in healthcare, housing, other community support services, employment, and efforts to eradicate sexual assault. So Carla, I wanted to start with you because you're still on active duty, you're about to retire. You were deployed to Iraq with the New Mexico National Guard as a supply sergeant. So, right? So technically you weren't on the front lines, but given the nature of the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts, you really did end up on the front lines. Can you talk about that?
I was at a little post called Log Base Sites. We were right up with Abu Ghraib, and we were mortared daily.
Mortared daily.
We were in a lot of action. We were hand in hand with the 1st Cavalry Division. So it was a lot. It was a lot to take in. We had a lot of people pass away on our post from mortar rounds.
What was the impact on you in terms of that and also being a woman on the front lines?
You know, I think as women, we tend to hold our emotions different. We tend to hold them on, what's the word I'm looking for? We just hold them on differently than men do. So I think it's hard because you're in a situation like that and you're dealing with the day-by-day stuff. So you're just getting through one day at a time, not thinking of what the impact is when you come home. So it's definitely hard. And it's hard being a female. There was only a handful of us that was on a post with a bunch of other males.
Did you feel like you had to prove yourself a lot?
Yeah, that's a daily event. It's still a man's world, no matter what goes on. So that's kind of a daily thing.
Have you struggled with PTSD since you came back?
Yes, yeah. I have my days, I have my moments. Of sometimes a little more moments than not, but.
What's it been like getting help for that?
It's been okay. The VA had a good program. The only problem I had with the program was that when I entered it, and I think it was just because it was so far in the beginning when I deployed, that the people that I was in counseling with were all there for different types of trauma, not necessarily my same type of trauma.
You had combat trauma.
I had combat trauma. So it was kind of hard because they wanted you to be in a group setting, but it was hard for me to relate to them, and it was hard for them to relate to me.
And Denise, you were in the Army, it was some time before the most recent conflicts, but you were going to deploy to the first Gulf War, and then it ended before your deployment was to take effect. So you were in Germany for a number of years, and then you returned to civilian life and were basically a homemaker. But in the last 15 months or so, you've been at Henderson House, which was a program set up by the YWCA about 3 years ago for homeless women veterans. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to be at Henderson House?
Well, I was in a very unhealthy relationship, and it's very difficult in our society to find help for women that are in the middle.
In the middle?
As far as a lot of places that can help women have requirements of that you have to be on drugs or you have to be being beat. And so if you don't make those requirements, you're not readily accepted into those places and to be into a safe place. to
They've got
stay.
funding for that kind of help
Yes.
for women. So,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. So that's been my journey into to being there.
So, in terms of, you had to leave a relationship, and you've had to, is it because you needed more skills to be able to be independent that you didn't necessarily get in the Army or after the Army?
Definitely. I was a homemaker. I did part-time jobs, but not anything near to support myself.
You've been there about 15 months.
Yes.
And why is it what is it like being there? Why is it an important place for women veterans?
It's a safe place for women to be. It's a regular home, and we've definitely set a precedence of peace and love and healing, and it's neat to really see the women there grow and being able to support themselves. I think that's the biggest problem, is not earning enough to support ourselves, but seeing each other go back to school, get higher paying jobs, and make a difference in the world.
And you got a degree with your GI benefits and in natural therapeutics?
I did use the VRAP program, and I graduated from the New Mexico School of Natural Therapeutics, and it's an amazing school. I love it.
And you've been doing some work with, actually people do have PTSD. You don't
Yes.
necessarily, but.
I don't have PTSD, but I have a passion for PTSD, and that's my heart, and working with veterans and using alternative therapies.
I want to turn to Megan because you're a program coordinator with Henderson House. As I said, was started 3 years ago by the Y. Women veterans face greater rates of unemployment and of homelessness than male vets. Why? What are some of the primary reasons that your women are coming to you guys?
Well, I think that, I guess the first reason would be that women are not traditionally looked at as veterans in general. I think that military culture does not really well prepare women to live in society, maybe even as much as men are. I mean, I know all veterans are at sort of a deficiency there when they return, but I would say that it's really just, it has a lot to do with some of the things that women experience in the military as well.
Talk about that. I mean, 1 in 4 women have been victims of military sexual trauma. That's
Absolutely.
the ones who report.
Right.
And so we know that's probably a low number.
Yes, yeah, and there is a lot of stigma against even reporting in the military those sorts of things because, well, for obvious reasons, you know, women have, their superiors are often people who can be abusers in those situations, and it's not safe for them to report often. But
How does that, sort of the trauma that came out of that, affect them being able to get the services they need, find housing that they need? Because I'm guessing their primary goal is to feel safe, right?
Absolutely, and I think a lot of it is based in fear. I think that women in the military are individuals who go there because they are strong people to begin with, and it's probably very hard for a very strong person to want to seek services for harm that's been done to them.
And when you have the women that are there in the house with Denise, like, what do you think some of the biggest challenges are for them that they face right now?
From my experience in talking with the ladies at Henderson House, I have seen a big deficit in family support or social support in general, and as well as difficulty finding jobs that suit them. I mean, many come straight from high school into the military, and so they only have the skills that they learned in the military.
And Judy, you are the president, and a veteran, longstanding veteran, and president of the Women Veterans of New Mexico. What are some of the biggest challenges you're seeing right now We're seeing many more women,
Correct.
right, coming
Yeah.
back.
Actually, one of the programs that we really focus on right now is a temporary emergency shelter program. And that's the one that'll actually transition them into a location, whether it be Henderson House or the New Mexico Veterans Integration Center. And that's to be able to put them into a safe location instead of them having to sleep in their vehicles and stuff.
You know, we've heard a lot about the problems at the VA that's kind of playing catch up. Have you, I mean, I don't, are they finding what they need here with this
Well,
VA?
some of the ladies initially last year were saying that they weren't receiving the assistance that they needed, but they started getting together with the patient advocacy to be able to let them know what were the problems they were having. If they weren't able to get through them, there's actually a coordinator that's available for women veterans if they get together with us that we can talk to directly, so that way we can identify what are the problems. But we've also seen congressionally, some of the ladies have went through that steps to be able to get the assistance that they need when they're not being heard down here at the VA services that are available in New Mexico.
One of the things I read in preparation for this, women are less likely to identify as veterans and therefore not seek the services they may be entitled to. Have you seen that, Judy, with women veterans?
I think for us it's kind of a coaching things at times to figure out what it is that they've actually dealt with and then provide them the locations where they can actually go as a representative, either taking them to the DAV or to the American Legion. So it's going to depend on the individual and what they've actually experienced. And then it comes to the actual documentation of, do they have information to actually document that they were at a location where a trauma occurred.
Why do you think sometimes women are hesitant to advocate for themselves, for the things they deserve after they've been in the military?
In my experience, it's actually maybe an attitude of not deserving that kind of help. And you know, I'm not exactly qualified to make heads or tails of why that would be, but overarchingly, yeah, I've seen just it's possibly the military culture that makes them feel that way. But
So I don't think, you know, as women, we are viewed as moms, as sisters, as, you know, grandmas, you know, so I think it's hard as a culture and a society for men to see us as combat veterans or as a soldier or as anything other than being a homemaker or being the person who takes care of the kids, who takes care of the house.
Or takes care of the soldiers.
Right, right.
And Judy, how do we raise that awareness? You mentioned what's going on here to try and
What
raise
we actually have here in Albuquerque going right now is in March next year timeframe, they're looking at the tribute to women in the military. The organization is going to have a sculpture that they're going to be putting at the Veterans Memorial. And then also down in Las Cruces, they've been working on a proposal to be able to get one put down there. They did finally have their first female soldier sculpture that was put up in another state. So that was one of the things that here in New Mexico they've been working on. And Socorro's also been looking at a sculpture for women veterans.
We are almost out of time, but I wanted to ask Carla and Denise, just tell us a little bit about what your future plans are, because you're about to retire.
Yes, I'm about to retire and I have 2 amazing babies. So the main goal is to be a stay-home mama. But I also, like mentioned before, I'd like to, well, I'm in the process of starting a business called Military Women. And the focus is to have it become a household name. So when you see a woman wearing a scarf that has the military woman symbol on it, you know that she served or is serving in the military. Some of the designs I'd like to put yes, I am a combat veteran.
Just to make
I
people
served.
aware.
Right, right. Because the majority of us don't run around and tell people that we were in combat or that we served in the military. And so, you know, I wanted to also tune in on when you said, why isn't that we sometimes don't tell? And I think it is such a stigma because I was in Walmart one day and I was in my uniform and I have a combat action badge. And I had an older gentleman tell me, he says, oh, so you jump out of airplanes? And I said, no, I said, this is my combat action badge. And he said,
What?
like he didn't believe me. He
Wow.
did not believe me. And so it is, and it's hard because, you know, and then I was like, this is why I don't go anywhere in my uniform because you kind of get that, it's a different response. And I'm very proud of my service. I'm very proud of all of it, you know. So, that's my goal. I really want to get something out there that's nice and pretty for women that shows that we served. We served.
And Denise, I know you are working towards your occupational therapy degree, and tell us a little bit about more what you want to do around PTSD and holistic medicine.
Yes, I'm really excited. I really am interested in doing research, and I really would like to team up with the group and even you ladies as well. And because I found out there's this huge gap. There was a report that came out in August from Columbia University where there is no, the VA isn't keeping regular documentation of what is working for PTSD and what isn't. And so there's this great opportunity to try these therapies and see what works and to identify that through brain mapping as well. I have seen reports on therapeutic grade oils where they change the frequency of the brain within minutes. And to be able to do that and help people is really my passion, my heart.
Oh, great. Well, I want to appreciate you all. Thank you all for your service as well. And thank you for coming and talking about this.
Thank you.
Thank you.